everybody. We're talking, it's our last lecture, everybody. Shh. It's our last lecture. We're looking at mammals today. All right. We have quite a few notes to take, and I'd like to get through there as quickly as possible and then get to our lab because we will be dissecting a rat today. You'll be working in groups of 2, so sharing a rat. And then you should be able to see all the parts of mammalian systems by looking at the rat. Okay? All right, go ahead. All right, everybody. Are we ready? Here we go. Mammals. What are the characteristics of mammals? Number 1, hair covering the skin. All right, sometimes it's more noticeable than other times. If you think about an elephant, it's not as noticeable as, say, a lion or tiger or something. Number 2, reproduce with internal fertilization, usually viviparous. Now remember what viviparous means.
What do you mean by usually?
Well, it's not 100%. Can you think of one that is not viviparous?
Platypus.
Exactly.
What's the other one? It's another type of.
It's called an echidna.
Yeah.
We'll look at that in a minute. All right. They nourish their young with milk secreted from special glands, and those glands are called mammary glands. That is where we get the word mammal. All right, number 4, they have a 4-chambered heart. Remember where we are in this group. This includes humans. And number 5, they're endothermic. Somebody mentioned that earlier. They are warm-blooded. You good?
Okay.
So I'm going to cover some of these with a little more detail. Not all of them. No sunglasses. What? All right. So when we talk about hair, body hair in mammals is sometimes very obvious, sometimes not. All mammals do have body hair. Specifically, mammals have follicles that hold hair, right? So hair follicles. Even things like a whale, right, has you might say a little a mole with a little piece of hair coming out. You see what I'm saying? Like a little whiskers, like whiskers. It's produced from follicles in the skin. Living cells near the root push up dead cells to form a hair shaft. So what is the function of hair? It gives warmth to the animal. It can contribute to camouflage, as you know. Specialized hairs aid in nerve signals. Those are hairs in our nose and in our ears, things like this. Cat's whiskers, in that case. Some mammals have use hair for use specialized hair for defense. And I'm showing this guy right here. This would be a porcupine, and a porcupine has quills. And I'm upset with myself because I have some porcupine quills and I forgot to bring them. All right, so there are 2 different kinds of porcupine, the North American porcupine and the African. This is an African here that I've shown you, and the ones I have, the quills I have are from an African porcupine. Yes?
So I saw this thing and it was like that porcupines don't actually shoot their quills.
They do not.
Until I heard that there's some of them that do if they're in like an actual life or death situation. Like if they don't shoot their quills, they will die. But it says that like 9 times out of 10 they won't.
Typically what happens is you brush up against it and it comes out easily into you, so it stays in you. The North American porcupine does have a barb on the end of its quill, so therefore when it sticks in you, it's kind of hard to get those out. So if you have a dog that got it in the face, it's probably a North American porcupine because we live in North America, and getting those out is kind of tough. Question?
So they can't actually shoot them?
They don't shoot them. I don't know that they can, so this is new information to me.
Because I actually had a teacher when I was a kid that actually like argued with me when I said that I didn't think they could actually shoot them.
Wow. Okay.
And she was like, they can shoot them for sure. And I was like,
Well, maybe they thought that, and now they've come up with new information or something. It's kind of appeared like they should. My understanding is they do not shoot them out. That's my understanding.
An article that I had found about it. And she
Oh
was
wow,
like,
she
"That's
still
probably
argued
not-"
with you?
Yeah, she was like, you know, that's probably not a reputable source.
Well,
I mean,
if y'all find out, let me know. I'm pretty sure they do not shoot them out. Okay, reproduction. Mammals are viviparous most of the time, which means that development occurs inside the female's body, and they have something, a connection. Remember, we talked about sharks sometimes developing inside the shark's body, but they're not connected to the mother. In this case, they are. The growing offspring are connected via a thing called a placenta. That's a vascular structure. Just remember what that means. What does vascular mean?
It means they have a lot of like blood.
Somebody got it. Blood supply. A large amount of blood supply. It provides nutrition from the mother to the baby. It results in something known as an umbilical cord a scar, which we call a belly button, right? Gestational periods will vary from species to species. Very large mammals like elephants have gestation, that means the length of the pregnancy, at about like 18 months. And then something big, I think a whale has almost 2-year gestation. Whereas for humans, it's 9 months, right? After birth, the newborn is then nourished by mother's milk through the mammary glands. So I wanted to show you, this is a picture of a placenta. And the placenta is separate from the baby, and it's nestled inside the mother's body, in the womb of the mother. And her blood supply comes really close to the offspring blood supply, but they never actually mix. All right, so a mother's blood does not mix with the baby's blood. I need the phone to go all the way away in a backpack or something like that. Thank you. All right, so then we can see right here that they get real close. So what is the baby getting from the mother? Oxygen from the blood and nutrition from the blood. Okay, but they can have different blood types and things like this. All right, so you can see right here, this is a developing fetus, and you can see it's nestled into this area of the placenta right there. So it's very close to it, very thin membrane, so that osmosis of nutrients and oxygen can go through pretty quickly. There are 3 main groups of mammals we'll be talking about. We have the placental mammals. Examples of those would be humans, whales, cats, dogs, pretty much the ones you think about, the more common ones. Any kind of cat, meaning, lion, tiger, that kind of thing. We have our marsupials, which are some pretty interesting animals. The kangaroo, the koala are the best examples of those. We also have one here in North America called the possum. Monotremes, which are some really, really weirdos out there. The platypus and the echidna, those are, by the way, the ones that are egg layers. But they do nurse their young at the end. Yes?
Can I get some water?
Quickly, I'm not going to stop at all. So, we got this filled in?
not for it.
Everybody good? Right faster.
Did y'all just see that?
Okay, here we go. The major orders of mammals. We can see they're divided into all these little groups over here. So we're going to actually go through several of these. And I'm not going to name every single one of them, but you will be familiar with most of them. There are some weirdos in here. Right here we see marsupial and monotremata. Those are the monotremes, are their own separate little group down here. Okay? So let's watch a little video.
What do these animals have in common? More than you might think. Along with over 5,000 other species, they're mammals, or members of class Mammalia. All mammals are vertebrates, meaning they have backbones. But mammals are distinguished from other vertebrates by a number of shared features. That includes warm blood, body hair or fur, the ability to breathe using lungs, and nourishing their young with milk. But despite these similarities, these creatures also have many biological differences. And one of the most remarkable is how they give birth. Let's start with the most familiar, placental mammals. This group includes humans, cats, dogs, giraffes, and even the blue whale, the biggest animal on Earth. Its placenta, a solid disc of blood-rich tissue, attaches to the wall of the uterus to support the developing embryo. The placenta is what keeps the calf alive during pregnancy, Directly connected to the mother's blood supply, it funnels nutrients and oxygen straight into the calf's body via the umbilical cord, and also exports its waste. Placental mammals can spend far longer inside the womb than other mammals. Baby blue whales, for instance, spend almost a full year inside their mother. The placenta keeps the calf alive right up until its birth, when the umbilical cord breaks and the newborn's own respiratory, circulatory, and waste disposal systems take over. Measuring about 23 feet, a newborn calf is already able to swim. It'll spend the next 6 months drinking 225 liters of its mother's thick, fatty milk per day. Meanwhile, in Australia, you can find a second type of mammal, marsupials. Marsupial babies are so tiny and delicate when they're born that they must continue developing in the mother's pouch. Take the quoll, one of the world's smallest marsupials, which weighs only 18 milligrams at birth, the equivalent of about 30 sugar grains. The kangaroo, another marsupial, gives birth to a single jelly bean-sized baby at a time. The third, and arguably strangest example of mammalian birth. There were once hundreds of monotreme species, but there are only 5 left. 4 species of echidnas and the duck-billed platypus. The name monotreme means one whole, referring to the single orifice they use for reproduction, excretion, and egg laying. Like birds, reptiles, fish, dinosaurs, and others, these species lay eggs instead of giving birth to live young. Their eggs are soft-shelled, and when their babies hatch, they suckle milk from pores on their mother's body until they're large enough to feed themselves. Despite laying eggs and other adaptations that we associate more with non-mammals, like the duck-billed platypus's webbed feet, bill, and the venomous spur males have on their feet, they are, in fact, mammals. That's because they share the defining characteristics of mammalia and are evolutionarily linked to the rest of the class. Whether placental, marsupial, or monotreme, each of these creatures and its unique birthing methods, however bizarre, have succeeded for many millennia in bringing new life and diversity into the mammal kingdom.
All right, so we're going to be looking at the major mammalian orders, apparently somewhere in your book on a table called 16.2. There are some exceptions to the general characteristics, like the duck-billed platypus laying eggs, and the marsupials being non-placental. Instead of having a placenta to nourish the baby, they have a pouch. All right, so I believe we have these numbered in your book. I have number 1, monotremata. Okay, these are the monotremes. They are oviparous. Oviparous means they lay eggs, right?
Oh, wait, hold up. Okay, so oviparous goes in characteristics. Reproduction is the third box, and then the examples. It's out of order.
Oh, okay, sorry about that. Oh, wait, here we go. Yeah, example would be the platypus and the echidna. Yeah, reproduction, it seems like oviparous would be in there as well.
Right.
I guess that's a characteristic. No, oviparous a character. I don't know. Wherever you put it, I don't care. Okay, so when the duck-billed platypus was first discovered and brought to the attention of scientists, they did believe that somebody was trying to hoax them, that they had taken some animals and sewn them together, until they actually found a living one, because the first one they ever saw was dead. They're very shy animals. They're also nocturnal, and they're only found in the area over there by Australia and New Zealand, and so they're not that common. Now, you can see them a little more commonly now because of zoos. We have them in zoos. If you look at it here, their bill is very interesting. It's kind of leathery. You could sort of bend it a little bit. And then you can definitely see the fur on them there, small eyes, and look at the babies. The babies are
I see why that would look fake. I mean, like the beak of the bill
Yeah, it does.
add on very well.
It doesn't. Yeah, it's a very unusual creature,
With the
for
bill,
sure.
like
Yeah.
weird.
So then we see them here in Tasmania and in eastern Australia. I thought they were in New Zealand too. I could be wrong about that.
Of course it's
There's an interesting thing about them. They do, when they go hunting in the water, they dive into the water. They're breathing air, of course, through lungs, but they go into the water. They don't have their eyes open underwater. They keep their eyes closed. And they're able to use their sense the electricity, kind of almost like an echolocation a little bit, to find the creature they're looking for as they're underwater. So that's pretty cool. Furthermore, the males do have the poisonous spur, so they will inject poison into another male platypus whom they're fighting. That's their biggest defense. It's typically between platypi, I don't know, what's plural of platypus?
Somebody
What now?
Venom or poison?
It is venom, is my understanding. Yeah. I think if you got entangled up with a male platypus, he'd spur you too. So be careful. I'm not sure how.
Is it deadly or just
I don't,
like stunning?
I don't know for sure.
Look it up.
Watch
This is an example of an echidna. So it looks a little bit like a porcupine, right? It's got quills for sure, so that part on there. That is part of its hair. They are small, and like the video said, we have did they say 4 different types of echidna? When they develop, they hatch, out of an egg, and they're hairless, and they're kind of look like little fat pink blobs. And then as they grow their hair. All right, Marsupialia, that would be the marsupials. These are the non-placental mammals. They have that specialized pouch where the young develop. Most of them live in Australia. We have kangaroos, koala.
All these things living in Australia.
I know. I'm not sure how Australia got the
It's
unique animal, card.
It's also
They won
funny
that
because
card.
the whole reason that Australians have their own accent is because some guy from England had an English accent and a speech impediment, and then everybody else over there.
Is that why they talk
Yes,
about
because that was like a banishment island for certain people.
It was a penal colony. That's where
Yeah.
people were put in jail,
Right.
mostly for owing money, unable to pay their debts. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's like God was like, okay, where do I put all these other animals that I have? What's this big island?
And they're kind of isolated over there,
Yeah.
right?
Like, maybe
So, wombats, wallaroos. A wallaroo kind of looks like a little miniature kangaroo. They have some little guys over here too. There's the wombat, that giant pig-looking thing. And then, of course, the possum is the North American marsupial. So if you see a possum out, I had a possum in my back door the other day coming up trying to steal the cat food that was up there until we turned the light on, and he looked at us and saw us and ran away. So the females do have pouches. Yeah, I know, they're vermin. Should have shown them. All right, so here we go. We can see our kangaroo with her joey. So when it's in the pouch, there's a joey there. Some of you who've taken class with me before, I show a video about how the little baby develops, and I'm not showing it here.
Is it a wildcat video?
It's not
No,
wildcat,
it's
sorry.
No, it's not a wildcat.
The koala, when I was growing up, the koala was called the koala bear. They're not bears because they are marsupials. And something interesting about them is that their pouch is upside down, so the opening to their pouch is down here at the bottom of their belly. So, you'd be concerned that the little baby might fall out. It's kind of an odd evolutionary directive there. So, guys, but it does have a circular muscle on it, sort of like when you pull string on a purse or something that keeps it closed like that.
Will a baby kangaroo just go up to you and go, "Hey, how you doing?"
I'm not sure. Oh, 'cause Joey?
Yeah, Joey
Okay, I
from
get it.
Friends.
All right, I get it. Look at this little baby koala. They are very, they're very docile.
Adorable.
They fight with each other, so they have really sharp teeth. If they bite you, it's not good. So they're wild animals, but I will say, guys, if you find them, I know the San Antonio Zoo does have some koala there, and the zookeepers walk with them on their shoulders, things like this. I don't know if you can get a special trip to be able to hold one. I'm not exactly sure. They're pretty heavy, actually. But they sleep, I believe, about 18 hours a day.
Oh my
They only eat one source of food, which is eucalyptus, and the eucalyptus has very little energy associated with it. So I don't know why they don't broaden their
I was about to say,
diet,
what's
so that they have a little more energy. But
So you're saying if you put them in a room with no eucalyptus, would they die?
yeah, I believe so.
Like anything else than that, they would die.
They will only eat eucalyptus. I'm guessing there might be some sort of
Bamboo?
processed food that somebody's made for them. I don't know.
Well, they
Not a
eat it-
zookeeper. Here's the American marsupial.
So if you melt
When
them
they're
down,
really,
they'll
really
turn
young, they're kind of
Aw.
cute, but when they're older, they're just disgusting, right?
Yeah. Looks like it has lipstick on. What the heck?
It's a
Yeah.
baby
I like some
possum.
different lips. You know what I'm saying?
They do have a prehensile tail, which means they can hang, they can hang from their tail, but adults usually don't because they're too heavy. But the babies do.
Baby possum.
What about?
Is that a baby possum?
That looks like a baby, yeah. When they're still kind of cute. All right, number 3, order Chiroptera.
I would like to see a video of an adult who does not realize that they're too heavy to hang from their tail yet.
Of the, yeah, they fall.
You say helicopter?
Did y'all do number 2, marsupial?
Yes.
Right, okay, number 3, Chiroptera, the only flying mammal, guys, the only flying mammal is the bat. Around here we have the Mexican free-tail bats. They are insectivores. They eat lots and lots of mosquitoes. This is not one of them, obviously, because you can see his tail. The free-tail doesn't have this little membrane right here amongst that, like that. So, they, then we also have the bats that are fruit eaters, fruit bats, much larger, also sometimes known as a flying fox. All right, so the common North American bats, you can see some of those here. What are we supposed to write down about these guys?
Characteristics and reproduction.
So the example is flying bats, right? Bats. Characteristic, active at night, and they use echolocation. We'll see this in just a second. So echolocation, look, echolocation. Their reproduction is they are viviparous. Viviparous. They have live birth. All right. This is a flying fox, so that's one of the larger ones.
Scary.
These eat fruit. If you were a little kid, ever read the book Stella Luna?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's about the flying fox. That is a bat. We do not have them here in North America. They're very prolific in tropical areas. Let's watch a little video on echolocation. Here we go. In fact.
Bats are able to catch prey and navigate in the dark by using echolocation. They emit an ultrasonic call either from their mouth or nose leaf. This call bounces off of any object in its path and comes back as an echo. Bats listen to their echoes to determine the size and texture of the object, how far away it is, and what direction the object is moving in. They also can use echolocation to communicate with other bats. Bats emit ultrasonic calls ranging in frequency from 11 kHz up to 212 kHz. Most insectivorous bats echolocate in the 20 to 60 kHz range, which is beyond what the human ear can hear. A device called a bat detector helps us to hear their echolocation by converting these ultrasonic calls into an audible frequency. Each species of bat that uses echolocation has a unique call, and this can be used to identify them. Here are a few examples.
Goofy.
Beatboxing.
All right, here we go.
That third one sounded like Afghanistan.
Pretty cool. Okay, this one we don't have to write down, but I thought it was an interesting deal. This is the order Dermoptera. It's kind of like a bat. It's called the flying lemur.
Is it like
So,
a sugar glider?
I believe it's more like a flying squirrel, right? Those are the ones that aren't really flying, right? They just can stretch out their skin and catch a breeze, and they kind of glide down like a sugar glider. Yeah. So that, but it's known as a flying lemur. I do believe that the only officially flying mammal is a bat. So
It
this
technically
would not
glides.
be.
Looks like a Pokemon.
I think it just glides. Yeah.
like actually
So
a
because it looks like it
Looks
does
like a
it. Yeah.
Pokemon.
But it's kind of cute, I thought. All right, order Carnivora. Is that the next one in your group? Yes? Okay. These are the meat eaters. They are viviparous. They all give live birth. The examples would be lions, cats, dogs, anything that is considered a meat eater. I raised for a long time ferrets, and ferrets are in this group because they are strict carnivores.
Girlfriend is fairies.
I fed them cat food. Didn't give them meat. Did you know that dogs are carnivores? The best thing to actually feed a dog is meat. In fact, probably the best thing to feed a dog is raw meat. So, it just gets too expensive for
Why
most people.
are animals able to eat raw meat better than a human? But when a human does it, it just completely.
We can eat raw meat. Humans can eat raw meat. We just don't prefer it that way. Some people do. Sometimes there might be some bacteria or something might make us sick. It has to do with process, not that it's fact that it's raw.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we
Yeah, I was about
cook
to
it
say,
because we
do-
like
do
the way it
that.
tastes.
So
We
wait,
cook it because
do
it
it.
kills bacteria.
So, if I were to just like find a wild animal that was not like fed anything bad, and I just like cut it and ate
Fresh?
its muscle, yeah, fresh, would it kill me?
So the bigger question there would be the creature. You said not fed anything bad.
A cow that was roaming the gardens.
Okay, so you would be maybe concerned about intestinal parasites, parasites or something like that. That would be the only thing I'd worry about. But no, you could eat raw meat. Have you never had a cannibal sandwich?
What about?
My husband's from Wisconsin, and you walk into a bar, and it's called a cannibal sandwich, and it's this giant mound of ground beef, and you put it on rye bread with onion, and you eat it just like that. I couldn't do it as a microbiologist. I said no. But the way they do it is they grind it fresh right there in the bar, in the they're called taverns up there.
Oh,
Okay.
that's cool. I would want to go to a tavern.
They're very prevalent in Wisconsin. It's cold up there, and they spend the winter in
Are
a
those the
tavern.
ones that like you go through the door and it like goes down? It's like basically.
Some
a
of them,
basement?
and there's somebody living above it.
Right.
Yeah. All right, so these creatures are also really good at hunting because they're carnivorous. They have to hunt typically. And here we're going to see a kitty cat hunting. Y'all ever seen your cat do this? Bonk. Yeah. So they pounce on their prey. Number 5, order Cetacea. Oh my gosh. Cetacea. These are some marine mammals. Examples would be whales and dolphins. Some of them use echolocation, and they are viviparous. They do have live birth, and they do nurse their young, interestingly. They have sort of little folds in their body, and the baby comes alongside of them and is able to lap up milk from while they're swimming in the ocean. Pretty cool.
Do like whales and dolphins ever stop swimming?
If they want to, they can. They're not like sharks that have to keep swimming. They breathe air through lungs, so they just come to the top. And they can dance around and stuff. They maybe just float and relax. I don't know
Is a
for
manatee
sure.
another example?
A manatee, let's see. Is it in here?
No,
No,
it's
it's in a different group. Good question. Manatee is not in this group. Yes.
So like, what if a shark like fell asleep, right? And it was like heading towards the coast. Would it just bump into the sand and like wake up, or what?
It would get
beluga.
beached.
Maybe.
Beluga.
Maybe, I don't know for sure. All right, so we can see the toothed whales versus the baleen whales. These are all Cetacea. So these are the baleen whales. The largest animal in the world is the blue whale, and it is a baleen whale. You can see over here that dolphins and stuff are in the group because dolphins are indeed considered whales. They're considered toothed whales. They have teeth. My grandson argues with me on that one.
So the blue whale is the biggest.
That is the biggest animal on the planet.
Oh my.
It's bigger than even what we believe the largest dinosaur was. So it's even bigger than that. Yeah. So
What about like the megalodon?
is that a shark?
It's bigger
Yeah.
than Megalodon.
It's
It
bigger.
is?
It's bigger than like the long-necked giant creatures that were land animals. Yeah. All right. So let's talk about whales for a second because they're very interesting to watch. They're very unique animals. If you study them very closely, when they put their tail up, it's called a fluke, and each fluke of each whale is absolutely unique to that critter. So a person who's studying these, a marine biologist, can look at that fluke right there and say, oh, that's so-and-so, and they would know that literally the name of the creature. So you can see right here, we have the left-right fluke, we have the notch, it comes at a certain time, the trailing edge, the tips, sometimes there's color on there, like a white spot or something like that, but they're sort of like a fingerprint. Next year I'll be teaching marine biology, and so I go into a lot more detail on the whales and their flukes. Here is a toothed whale called a dolphin, and we all love dolphins, right?
I've
They're
had
just
dolphins
beautiful.
Me too.
Now this right here at the top of their head is called the melon, and there's like a fat ball inside there, and at the back of there is the blowhole. So the blowhole is where they're breathing from. All right, it's tempting for us to believe that they're breathing out of their mouth because that's how we breathe, but they're breathing from their blowhole. Therefore, the noise that they make, the sounds that they make, are coming from the top of their head.
Really?
Really?
Yes. Yeah. They do move their jaw around. They move their jaw around to change the intonation of it. but it is coming from the top. So you've probably heard of porpoises, right? The difference between dolphins and porpoises, if you've been down to the coast of Texas, we have dolphins here in the Gulf of Mexico. We do not have porpoises. One of the differences is that porpoises prefer colder water, and so we have warmer water down here. All right, so we can see here that we have the long-beaked common dolphin and the bottlenose. This is the top one here, is the one we have in Texas. We do have some bottlenose as well, but the nose is a little longer than that one that shows here. And notice the porpoise does not have that long nose. In fact, the porpoise is a little creepy looking, honestly. And so these are the ones you think about at the shows at SeaWorld and this kind of stuff, or usually the bottlenose and the long bottlenose. See, sometimes that's called the long bottlenose dolphin, and that's really the ones we have at the coast. Because the ones we have, I don't believe, have a white belly in there. They do use echolocation, and how they do it is they make the sound from their blowhole, and they send it out, and the melon amplifies it. It's like a lens, and it comes out, and then when the sound bounces back, they pick it up through their bottom jaw, the lower jaw, and that goes to their brain, and they can interpret how far away it is, how big it is, that kind of thing, and they're able to go for it.
Wait, question.
Yes.
Can you go back? Okay. How is that their skull? Like their skull is not.
Here?
Yeah, it's like not the rest of their head. It's just weird to think.
Well, if you just picture, here's our skull right here. Just picture a giant water balloon on the front of your head.
So like, what's their skeleton like? Is it just
No, but like it doesn't have your jaw in it. Like our skulls have our jaw like attached to it.
Well, this jaw, the lower jaw's right here. Oh, I see what you're saying, but the fact that it's not attached right here, yeah, that's interesting.
That's weird to me.
Yeah, both
I
top
think
and
it
bottom.
probably just goes around that tube. It's just like cut in half. Imagine your face cut in half. Or someone else's face. Probably.
I see what you're saying. It might come around this way, is what you're saying.
Yeah, it's probably.
Yeah, I don't know for sure, to be honest with you. All right, so
Oh, I see what you're saying.
the beluga whale, y'all, if you've all seen Finding Nemo and Finding Dory, right? We have the beluga whale in there, and they have a particularly large melon on their head, so they're very, very good at echolocating. They are known as the canary of the sea. They sing little songs. It's pretty cool to listen to them. If you touch their melon, look how floppy it is. You can just kind of, it's like a bowl of Jello at the top of their head right there. So pretty cool. You would see, can we see it on this guy? No. Yeah, just a little farther down, about right there, would be the blowhole on this guy.
I bet that hurts a little bit if you press it like that.
Well, kind of like me, you know, that kind of thing. So this is order Sirenia. You asked about the stacks. The dugongs and the manatee belong in order Sirenia. All right, these guys are really, really cool. Also known as sea cows. They're very, very docile, very gentle animals. They have little flat discs in their mouth that you use for eating grass and stuff, so they don't really bite you or anything. They are so slow. You can see back here on this guy's back, algae's growing on his back. He's just so slow that the algae finds a spot to grow on there. They live oftentimes in briny water, you know, so it's where the fresh water and the seawater are coming together. Like for instance in Florida, you can find these guys. Their number one enemy, boats. Boats run into them. Notice here they're underwater. Their little nostrils, they have little flaps on their nostrils. They can close their nostrils. They sleep floating in the water, and they'll, when they need a breath, they'll stick their little nose up and take a breath. Yeah, so they're kind of cute.
How often do they have to breathe?
They have pretty big lungs, so they can take a big breath and be good for a while.
What's the animal that can? There was one animal I was reading about. It like can take a breath every like 3.5 hours or something.
I'm not sure. Not sure. All right, order Proboscidea. This would be the elephants. Did y'all write everything down that we're supposed to write on these groups? Yes. Okay, so I'm just going to give you examples of a few more that I find very interesting. So Proboscidea, of course, would be referring to their proboscis, or their trunk on their nose. And keep in mind that that their trunk is prehensile, and they can use it like fingers. Okay, so when I had a unit with my little children, they have put their hand in a sock and picked up peanuts with their fingers through that. They can actually pick up very small things with their trunk. It's kind of interesting. So their trunk is like a hand. And then, of course, they feed themselves with it, but yet it goes all the way up. They can drink, like suck it up like a straw, or throw it into their mouth. Alright, orders Artiodactyla and Perissodactyla. It's differentiated by the number of toes that they have. Perissodactyla are the odd-toed ungulates. They're called the odd-toed ungulates. So 1 toe, 3 toes, that's usually, yeah. The horse walks around, I don't know, do you know this? The horse walks around on 1 toe on each foot. That's why they're so vulnerable to broken legs. So picture yourself just walking on your large toe, right? Also the zebra and rhino, that makes sense, right? Artiodactyla, even-toed ungulates. Ungulate has to do with the way that their stomach works. They tend to have more than one stomach. I'm not sure if that's true about a horse. Anybody know? Horse people in the room?
What?
Does a horse have 2 stomachs?
I don't know.
No, I don't really care.
Yeah. The artiodactylar, even-toed ungulates, sheep, deer, bison, pigs, cows. It says ungulates have stomachs with many chambers, so maybe they just have multiple chambers. Somebody needs to figure that one out about horses. This is, of course, a camel. It's got 2 toes, so which group does it belong to? Yeah, which one was that?
Even toed ungulate.
Which group was that?
Oh, I don't know.
The Artiodactyla.
Oh.
Okay, so that would be Artiodactyla. There's our camel standing there, right? Walking around 2 toes each foot. All right, Rodentia. You have a little bit of experience with these guys after last week when you took apart those owl pellets. You found a lot of teeth that looked a lot like this. Very recently, somebody was talking about a nutria that was found, I think, in New York City or something like this. Nutria are just basically a large rat. And somebody said, and their teeth are orange. And I said, well, all of them have orange teeth. They all have orange teeth. So it's just that's a characteristic of the rodents. They don't.
He looks like he's screaming.
Yeah, I believe somebody's holding it just that way so we can see those teeth. So you can see right here some common group in here. We have gerbils, chipmunks, mice, squirrels, prairie dog, beaver, capybara. I think the capybara is the largest one, in fact. All right, here's a little mouse of some sort, kind of cute. All right, so notice that what's not in this group, we do not have bunnies in this group. So bunnies are not in the same group as rats and mice. They are not rodents.
Because bunnies taste good and
What?
rodents don't.
Yeah, rabbit, yeah, that's good food, man.
Silly rabbit.
All right, so they're in an order called lagomorph, the lagomorphs, Lagomorpha.
It looks like that tastes good.
And the differentiating feature about them that keeps them from being put into the rodent category, ironically, is their teeth. You think about a bunny's teeth seem like a rodent's teeth, those flat ones, right? But what we have here, if you check this out, do you see right behind here? Here's their teeth. Do you see behind there? Behind the front teeth, they have an extra set of teeth there. It's not so they can make up for when a tooth falls out like a shark. It's not like that. They just have 2 sets, one of these incisors right behind the other. That puts them in a whole separate group. That's why they're not a rodent. So here we have the hare, the rabbit, and the pika are in this group called the lagomorphs. All right, so they have that funny tooth thing. All right, order Edonta. It says Edentata. Okay, Edentata? Edentata means toothless. They don't have any teeth. Does anybody know what that critter is?
It starts with a P, right?
Uh-huh.
Oh,
yeah, it's.
I watched Wildcrafts. I saw this.
Yeah, I saw that too.
They have, okay. It's
Like
called
a
a
Godzilla.
pangolin.
Yes.
A pangolin was kind of in the news because back at the start of COVID, they kept telling us that it had come to us through a pangolin, which it did not. It came out of a scientific lab, so it didn't come from an animal. All right, no, it didn't come from a bat.
It didn't.
Suborder Xenartha. Xenartha? No, they've proven it now that it did come from a lab. So
Wait,
this
is
is.
anybody under arrest for it?
They should be, but they're not. They're not, as far as I know. So this Edentata includes the sloth. Here's a sloth right here, guys.
Looks like his hand is
You can see a sloth in South America. If you go, like I was in Argentina. No, that was not right. I was in Costa Rica. And they said, look there's a sloth, and I'm looking in the tree, couldn't see a thing because they move very, very slowly. So slowly, once again, look, we have algae growing on their backs. They don't ever come out of the trees as far as I know, ever. But look at this guy in the same suborder, Xenartha, we have this guy right here. The pink fairy armadillo. Pink fairy armadillo, kind of cute. All right, the order Tubulidonta, that would be the aardvark. So you can see tuba, like they have that, remember that tongue comes shooting out there to catch bugs, insects, and things like that. So that's the aardvark. Similar looking, I guess, to an anteater, but I think they're different groups. We have order Insectivora. This is a mole. This is called the star-nosed mole. Guys, could I get y'all to cool it, please? The star-nosed mole, notice there are no eyes. He doesn't need any eyes because he lives way underground, doesn't use any eyes. Another group in here, this would be a shrew. So some of us, nobody found a shrew last week, right? What did we think? Who had the unusual thing in there?
I had a baby mole.
Yeah, there was a mole in there, right? That was pretty, because he had that pointy nose, yeah. So you can see that's the mole, right? See pointy nose, you see why this guy would be in the same group because of that pointy nose. And this guy's in there too. This is called a hedgehog. Notice it's not in the same group as the porcupine, right? So, I had a kid who had this for a pet. They're not very cuddly, however, so. All right, this is called order Hyracoida, called the hyrax. That's a new one for me. The order primates, of course, we have the apes and the monkeys in this group. Here, what's the difference between an ape and a monkey? Major difference between an ape and a monkey. Tail. Who has the tail?
Lemurs.
Monkeys have tails. Apes do not. So here are the way we break them up. Look here, our lemurs are in this, guys. Our lemurs are in this group. And then most of them, we have our old world primates and our New World primates. We have spider monkey. New World literally means they were found in North and South America. They didn't know about them for a long time. So the spider monkey, the squirrel monkey, the marmoset, the howler monkey, those are all New World, found mostly in the tropical areas of North, Central, and South America. We have monkeys here in the Old World, baboons, mandrills, and then our apes, the gibbon, the lesser ape, and then the big apes would be the giant gorilla, the bonobo, orangutan, and the chimpanzee. So,
Miss Casper,
yes,
do you know what the most recent species discovered was for monkeys?
I do not.
I'm pretty sure. I'm not 100% sure. That's why I asked. But I think it was in like 2014, and it was like in India. Is what I heard.
Okay, I'm not surprised because sometimes it's the same thing with insects like that. When you're in a jungle area, there's so many areas that we just haven't actually got. You two, I'm going to need to separate you if you don't quit. Do you understand? You may leave if you like. Yes? You got it? Okay, you're being very disrespectful to me. All right? Thank you. Okay, here's our differences. Apes tend to be intelligent. They say they can learn language. I don't know about that. They have smooth, flat noses. Here they can learn the sign language. Monkeys, not as intelligent. Almost all of them have tails, and they do have a snout that comes out. So it's a way you can learn there. Okay, learn the differences. They're broken into all this group here. We have tons and tons of different kinds of primates here. And notice who's right there. Can anybody read it?
Humans.
Us. We're in there. Okay, so we're considered primates. In Kingdom Animalia, I would say we should have a whole different kingdom for humans called Humana.
I say that's
Whatever.
Humera.
So, but we do have the characteristics of mammals. All right, we're going to learn a little bit now about animal behavior. This is new for this new curriculum that came out with this biology book.
It's King
Is that a monkey or an ape?
It's
a monkey.
You can tell by his snout sticking out, right? I can't see his tail, but it's a cute little monkey right there. Okay, so you have some notes now to take on animal study. Animal behavior is any response an animal makes to changes in its environment. Kind of, sort of, you could say they're teachable. How about that? These are things we can, have you ever trained a dog, right? You train him by maybe giving him a reward if he does what you ask him to do, things like that. This is all going to be part of animal behavior. Yes?
If you watch the More for the Planet of the Apes, it shows that they learn everything. Stuff from humans. It's
Those
funny.
are the newer ones. I grew up with the old Planet of the Apes movies, and y'all
No,
would think
it's
they were
20,
the
like,
most lame
20,
thing ever.
2016.
Yeah. All right. Innate behavior describes inherited behaviors performed correctly. So they do it, and they do it right by all the members. They all do it. For instance, we see a bird here, instinctive. We're going to call it instinct, in fact. Okay? They're instinctively building a nest. All right? So different types of birds will build different kinds of nests, and that comes to them instinctively. You've seen the ones that build nests out of mud and they put it at the top of your house, right? Those guys. Or the ones that have made big elaborate nests. Did we do the bowerbird? The blue had all the blue things collected, and he collected blue things. He found like blue pins and things like this to make his nest out of that. Yes.
So, it's their instinct to build a nest, right?
Yes.
So then, what about like the ones that like in the cities that have like bird nests that are already built by like the government that birds can use, like line leaves?
That's their instinct. So the purple martin, for instance, their instinct is to nest in a hollow thing way up high. So if you've ever seen those gourds or whatever, and people paint them white and they put them really high,
Yeah.
those are to attract purple martins. They're going to instinctively go for a place like that.
Do pigeons even, some pigeons do nests, right? But
Well,
some pigeons don't.
I guess it depends on each pigeon. I'm not sure because I know that they've almost become domesticated. You know what I'm saying? So whether or not they build a nest, it just depends on each bird. This bird right here in this picture is building a fairly elaborate nest.
My dad one time just drove by, and he was like the only person on the road one time in Elgin, and drove all the way home, and this pigeon followed him and roosted on the house for like 3 days.
Followed him like flew?
Yes.
Interesting.
And like he didn't even
We'll talk
eat
about
anything.
that and see if we had some imprinting or something going on. Okay, so what's happening in this little loop right here is we have this little sea turtle that, guess what, instinctively goes running to the sea, right?
He goes flying. Back.
It's not running away from the sea. Does he get knocked down a little bit? Boom, yeah. So he's probably not going to survive anyway. So. All right. Learned behavior. Learned behaviors are those that are not inherited but learned through experience. And we're going to get a little more detailed on this one. Is how do we teach them? And we can teach them through negative consequences or positive consequences. And so some of this may actually get into what we call human behavior because your parents may have used negative reinforcement and positive reinforcement on you to get you to do something, right? So we have learned behavior as well. All right, so FAP stands for Fixed Action Pattern that describes the triggering of innate behavior by stimulus that occurs as an unchangeable sequence of actions that continue uninterrupted until completed. Woo! That's a lot of stuff there. And so what we're referring to here, we're looking at this little fish right here. Let me see what his name is on my notes. It's called the male stickleback. He develops a red belly, but only during mating season. The female does not. If the male encounters another male, he'll fight with them. And that holds true even if the object with red on the underside is introduced. For instance, so you understand he's going to develop a red belly during mating time. And if we introduce something like this into the system that has a red belly on it, he will fight that. He'll fight against that thing right there.
Will he bite it?
Yeah, he'll try to kill it because he thinks it's another male, you see.
Like, bruh.
So that is just a fixed action pattern. And I have a little video here that's going to show you about this bird. And this bird is trying to nest an egg, and if you put something else near her, she'll try to nest it. I guess it's like a billiard ball. So she pulled it into her nest. They're going to talk in a minute.
An egg needn't be white or even egg-shaped.
It's a Matryoshka doll.
What's it called?
A Matryoshka.
I'm just always calling it a Russian.
Look, a light bulb, that makes sense, right? It looks a little bit like a rose.
What you look like an explosive bomb.
In her eyes, even a wooden cube can pass for an egg.
This is a block.
A grenade.
They would love a grenade.
She pulls the pin, she rolls another.
So that's that fixed action. So she's going to have that maternal instinct about anything near the nest. All right, circadian rhythms, you've probably heard of these. Circadian rhythms describe behaviors that are regularly repeated. Some rhythm patterns are seasonal, like migration. When we're talking about animals, we'll look at something called migration. But we have our circadian rhythm, we humans do. Have you ever known anyone who had to work the night shift?
Yes.
And did they ever get used to it?
Yeah.
It's very hard. We get to what we call vampire syndrome, right? That they're awake at night and asleep during the day. My husband worked that shift for a while, and he was just tired all the time because even though he slept in the day, our rhythm in our body is set that we will be awake during light hours and asleep during dark hours.
Isn't that what the what's it called?
Asher.
So I have a friend, and he goes to our youth group, and his mom has always worked the night shift for like 3 years, so she always sleeps during the day.
And does she like it? Would she
has
go
it-
to the day shift if she could?
I don't think so. She's gotten so used to it that I think she just likes it. I mean,
Okay.
for 3 years, I don't think you can really like say
It's
it if you don't like it.
yeah, it's hard for humans to do it, but it is because it's part of our circadian rhythm. So the seasonal one, like migration, we're going to see here. Those are probably geese or something, yeah, that are flying south for the winter, and then we can see them flying through the Texas area quite frequently,
Why are they
and lots of
formation?
different kinds of birds. It's for flight. It allows the he's basically breaking through the fluid of the atmosphere. It's like, what do they call that? Drafting, right? It's like when you run behind somebody or even drive a car behind somebody, you're drafting on that. So, all right, 3 types of learned behavior. Here we go. Habituation, conditioning, and imprinting. All right, these are the official titles. A bunch of these you will have actually heard of when I explain them to you. I think the one that's most obvious from the name of the word would be conditioning, right? We're going to condition somebody for something.
I'm doing that today.
All right, those are long words. Everybody got them? Good? All right, so habituation. It's a learned behavior where an animal learns not to respond to repeated stimulus that gives little or no important information. For instance, I have crows. I want to get rid of them in my garden, so I put up a scarecrow, and after a while, they figure it out, right? They figure it out. Have you ever seen around here pretend like a plastic owl on a roof,
Yeah.
right? And but after a while, they catch on that owl's never moved. He's never attacked me. That's not a real owl, but it does work for a little while.
What if you move
What
the
if?
owl?
Yeah. What if you?
Maybe if you move it, maybe so.
It's like, oh,
Yeah.
this is
So, but you can see here, prolonged exposure. They're not faked out by it anymore. All right, imprinting. This might be something you're familiar with. A usually irreversible type of learning limited to a specific period in the animal's life. That would be that they are going to imprint on the mom. So, Dax, you were saying that this bird followed your dad home. He might have. You've seen the cartoons, right, where the one critter imprints. That's my mom, you know, and so this bird might have thought your dad was his mom, right? So it just depends, right, on what happened in that creature right here. So therefore, these guys are just instinctively. I kind of like to put instinct on this one as well. They're instinctively following the mom. She's also going to protect them, right? But she's not like nursing them or anything, right? They're ready to go. All right, conditioning. A certain behavior is linked to a reward or punishment. All right, so the absolute, like, quintessential example of conditioning, what is something we call Pavlov's dogs. Okay, so the idea is that the dog is hungry. Have you ever experienced in your life where you smell food or you see food and your mouth starts to water?
Yes.
Okay, that's kind of a deal because you're hungry, right? Your body's getting ready to eat. It's normal for us to do that. So that same thing with dogs. We let them get hungry, then we put the food out and they start to salivate in preparation to eat. And then they started attaching that with the bell sound. So Pavlov's the most famous for this, where he had a buzzer or a bell or something that he rang. And every time they fed them, they rang the bell. And so then they started to associate the bell with it's time to eat. And so Pavlov actually had a little tube coming out of the dog's throat.
No.
Yeah, so when he salivated, it dropped the saliva so he could test the saliva. So some people think Pavlov's experiment was cruel to animals, but we learned a lot from it, and we learned a lot about animal conditioning is what we learned from it. Yes?
This guy, every time it was time for his dog to eat, he put on Drake. And And so
When it was time for what?
when it's time for his dog to eat, he was put.
He played the Drake. He played
he
a
played
Drake song,
Yeah.
and then the dog would come running.
Yeah.
Yeah. You've all know that if they hear the bag shake or they hear the bowl move around or something like that.
I saw this thing, and this person tapped on a bunch of multiple surfaces, you know, a bunch of metal and all that. But then once they tapped on the bowl, the dog ran.
Oh wow. Okay. So they knew exactly the sound
Yeah.
they were waiting for. Okay, so training a dog, there's two types of conditioning. We have classical training. A dog hears a can opener, here we go, and comes running for the food. So that's similar to what you were saying. We're in the bowl, the shaking of the bag, whatever it is. Operant training is an example of a learned behavior, sometimes negative. In this particular case, the dog chased a skunk and got sprayed and got all stinky and said, I'm not chasing that anymore. Some dogs learn that, other dogs just chase it.
My dog was still chasing.
Yeah. All right, were you just supposed to write those words down? Do I need to get the skunk out of the way? Classical and operant. And we're going to watch a little video on this one. Are we ready, everyone? There's our skunk. All right, here we go.
When we think about learning, we often picture students in a classroom or lecture hall, books open on their desk, listening intently to a teacher or professor in the front of the room. But in psychology, learning means something else. To psychologists, learning is a long-term change in behavior that's based on experience. Two of the main types of learning are called classical conditioning and operant or instrumental conditioning. Let's talk about classical conditioning first. In the 1890s, a Russian physiologist named Ivan Pavlov did some really famous experiments on dogs. He showed dogs some food and rang a bell at the same time. After a while, the dogs would associate the bell with the food. They would learn that when they heard the bell, they would get fed. Eventually, just ringing the bell made the dogs salivate. They learned to expect food at the sound of a bell. You see, under normal conditions, the sight and smell of food causes a dog to salivate. We call the food an unconditioned stimulus, and we call salivation an unconditioned response. Nobody trains a dog to salivate over some steak. However, when we pair an unconditioned stimulus like food with something that was previously neutral, like the sound of a bell, that neutral stimulus becomes a conditioned stimulus. And so classical conditioning was discovered. We see how this works with animals, but how does it work with humans? In exactly the same way. Let's say that one day you go to the doctor to get a shot. She says, "Don't worry, this won't hurt a bit," and then gives you the most painful shot you've ever had. A few weeks later, you go to the dentist for a checkup. He starts to put a mirror in your mouth to examine your teeth, and he says, "Don't worry, this won't hurt a bit." Even though you know the mirror won't hurt, you jump out of the chair and run screaming from the room. When you went to get a shot, the words, "this won't hurt a bit," became a conditioned stimulus when they were paired with the pain of the shot, the unconditioned stimulus, which was followed by your conditioned response of getting the heck out of there. Classical conditioning in action. Operant conditioning explains how consequences lead to changes in voluntary behavior. So how does operant conditioning work? There are two main components in operant conditioning, reinforcement and punishment. Reinforcers make it more likely that you'll do something again, while punishers make it less likely. Reinforcement and punishment can be positive or negative, but this doesn't mean good and bad. Positive means the addition of a stimulus, like getting dessert after you finish your veggies, and negative means the removal of a stimulus, like getting a night of no homework because you did well on an exam. Let's look at an example of operant conditioning. After eating dinner with your family, you clear the table and wash the dishes. When you're done, your mom gives you a big hug and says, "Thank you for helping me." In this situation, your mom's response is positive reinforcement if it makes you more likely to repeat the operant response, which is to clear the table and wash the dishes. Operant conditioning is everywhere in our daily lives. There aren't many things we do that haven't been influenced at some point by operant conditioning. We even see operant conditioning in some extraordinary situations. One group of scientists showed the power of operant conditioning by teaching pigeons to be art connoisseurs. Using food as a positive reinforcer, scientists have taught pigeons to select paintings by Monet over those by Picasso. When showed works of other artists, scientists observed stimulus generalization, as the pigeons chose the Impressionists over the Cubists. Maybe next they'll condition the pigeons to paint their own masterpieces.
I did see a video of this teaching that like they gave him a room full of white canvas and it started painting a bunch of random stuff. Like with
Does that mean we can train pigeons now?
Social animals. Animals that live in groups are social. They have behaviors in some form of communication, and here this is what we're putting in the box. We're putting in bees and ants. We know that already from our insect unit. Wolves, okay? Who knew? Antelopes. Whales do travel around in groups, pods, right?
antelopes.
Pods of whales. Yeah, I don't know. I just was told to tell y'all to put it there.
what?
So wolves do travel in packs, right? They travel in packs. I guess antelopes travel in
They travel in herds.
herds.
Oh,
Whales
this whole
in
thing I was thinking of a
pods.
cantaloupe. I'm sorry.
Oh, no.
What? For some reason I was
Antelope.
like, what?
Yeah, we're not in the botany unit.
I'm so confused.
I love
Sounds like-
All right,
I
everybody
love
good?
myself a group of cantaloupe.
Yeah, I was like, what?
Herd of cantaloupe.
Some common animal. Are y'all supposed to write all this down?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna just leave this up for you here. We're gonna be seeing the behaviors here: social behavior, aggression, competition, territorial, dominance, hierarchies, courtship, cooperation, and we have examples over here. Example of a social behavior: communication, food space, mating. Here, aggression, competition for food space, mates. Territorial defense, we know that, right? Defending, marking territory, fighting for territory. Pack life dominance, pecking order, right? So that would be where we have the alpha male, that kind of thing. Courtship rituals here for impressing the prospective mate. And cooperation, communication, sharing resources, division of labor. Bees are a really good example of that. So I'm gonna just turn the light on over here and start getting y'all's lab stuff ready for you.
Oh.
Hey, let's go.
And y'all just keep writing. All right, Lauren, I'm gonna have you scooch down and work with Donna here. Two are together.
Sweet.
Dax, you are with Asher.
Yeah. Let's go. That's a great group.
No, it's not.
That's gonna be like just left there. Just gonna tell.
Nicole, you're gonna work with.
So you think in summary, biology is the study of life and how creators are created and all things by his design. That's all we
I
need to
swear,
know.
Eliana's right.
It's from the beginning, I should've just told you that the first
Yeah,
day.
that's all we need to know.
Yeah.
In summary, that's all we need to know.
Hey, Pop.
Yeah, exactly. We just need to know that one.
I can get you.
Okay, so I'm gonna bring your specimen to you. And we always, oh, but let me get you gloves first. Okay, I was recording today if anybody wants it. I'm gonna turn it off now. Oh, wait. This was that last quote right there, right? We've reached the end of our study. Evidence how a great creator is who made all things by his creative design. I will go back.
What is that, my guy?
And then we're gonna do lap time. All right. Here we go.
Go back summary?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, David got